The sky turned black at 3 in the afternoon. Marcus Webb stood on his porch, watching the clouds roll in like a dark blanket being pulled across the world. He'd seen storms before, plenty of them in his 42 years living in Riverside County, but this one felt different. The air tasted metallic, and the wind carried a warning that made his skin prickle. He should have stayed inside. His wife Sarah had told him that morning to pick up sandbags from the hardware store, but he'd put it off. Now the store was closed, and the rain was already starting to fall in thick, heavy drops that exploded against the pavement like tiny water balloons. Marcus grabbed his rain jacket from the hook by the door and stepped back inside just as the sky opened up completely. Within minutes, the rain became a wall of water. Marcus stood at his living room window, watching the street transform into a river. The storm drains couldn't handle the volume. Water rose over the curbs, swallowing the sidewalks, creeping toward front doors. His neighbor's trash cans floated past like small boats. A bicycle tumbled end over end in the current. Then he heard it. A scream that cut through the roar of the storm. Marcus pressed his face against the glass, searching for the source. At first, he saw nothing but rain and rushing water. Then movement caught his eye. Two small figures, maybe 50 yards down the street, clinging to a lamppost. Children. The water was up to their waists and rising fast. His heart hammered against his ribs. Where were their parents? Why were they outside in this? Another scream, more desperate this time. Marcus didn't think. He yanked open his front door and plunged into the deluge. The water hit him like a physical force, immediately soaking through his jeans and filling his shoes. The current was stronger than he'd expected, pulling at his legs, trying to sweep him off his feet. He leaned into it, pushing forward, using parked cars as anchors when the water threatened to knock him over. The rain pelted his face, making it hard to see. He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand and kept moving. 20 yards. 30. The girls were clearer now, maybe 8 and 10 years old, their faces pale with terror, arms wrapped around the metal pole like it was the only solid thing left in the universe. Hold on. Marcus shouted, though he doubted they could hear him over the storm. A piece of debris, a wooden fence panel, slammed into his side, nearly knocking him down. Pain shot through his ribs, but he kept going. The water was deeper now, up to his thighs, pulling harder. Every step was a battle. When he reached the lamppost, the older girl's eyes locked onto his. She had dark hair plastered to her face and tears mixing with the rain on her cheeks. The younger one was crying, her small body shaking. "I've got you," Marcus said, trying to keep his voice steady. "You're going to be okay." He reached for the older girl first, but she shook her head violently. "My sister. Take my sister first." There was no time to argue. Marcus grabbed the younger girl under her arms and pulled her away from the pole. She weighed almost nothing, but the current immediately tried to tear her from his grasp. He held her tight against his chest with one arm and reached back for her sister with the other. That's when he felt the ground shift beneath his feet. The water surged, twice as strong as before, and suddenly all three of them were swept off their feet, tumbling into the churning brown water that had swallowed the street whole. The world became chaos. Water filled Marcus's nose and mouth. He couldn't tell which way was up. His lungs burned. The younger girl's fingers dug into his shoulders, her grip the only thing keeping them connected. He kicked hard, fighting against the current, and broke the surface for a gasping breath. "Emma." The older girl's voice was raw with panic. She'd been swept several feet away, her arms flailing as she tried to stay afloat. Marcus's training kicked in, the water safety course he'd taken years ago when Sarah was pregnant with their son. Float, don't fight. Find something stable. Protect the airways. He adjusted his hold on the younger girl, keeping her head above water, and used his free arm to swim toward her sister. The current carried them fast, spinning them past submerged cars and uprooted trees. Marcus's shoulder slammed into something hard, a mailbox, and fresh pain exploded through his arm. He gritted his teeth and kept moving. The older girl was just ahead, being pushed toward the corner where Main Street intersected with Oak Avenue. That intersection was dangerous. The water from both streets would converge there, creating a whirlpool effect. If they got caught in it, they'd go under. "Grab my hand," Marcus shouted, stretching his arm toward the girl. She reached for him, her fingers brushing his, but the current yanked her away. Her head went under. Marcus's heart stopped. He kicked harder, lunging forward, and managed to grab a fistful of her jacket just as she surfaced again, sputtering and coughing. Now he had both girls, but he was running out of strength. His muscles screamed. His vision started to blur. The younger girl, Emma, was whimpering against his chest, and her sister was dead weight in his other hand, too exhausted to help herself. Think, Marcus. Think. Through the rain, he spotted it, a large oak tree that had survived the flood, its thick trunk creating a break in the current. If he could reach it, they could rest, figure out their next move. It was 20 feet away. Might as well have been 20 miles. But he had no choice. Marcus angled his body, using the current instead of fighting it, letting it push them toward the tree at an angle. His grandfather had taught him that trick during a fishing trip decades ago. The river always wins, the old man had said. So make the river work for you. They were moving fast now, terrifyingly fast. The tree was getting closer, but so was a partially submerged car directly in their path. If they hit it wrong, the impact could kill them. Hold your breath. Marcus yelled to the older girl. She had just enough time to close her mouth before they went under. The water was darker below the surface, murky with mud and debris. Marcus kept his eyes open despite the sting, orienting himself by the shifting shadows. He could see the car ahead, a dark shape in the murk. He pulled both girls close and dove deeper, letting the current carry them under the vehicle. Something sharp scraped his back. The younger girl's grip tightened around his neck, cutting off his air. Pressure built in his chest, a fire spreading through his lungs. Just a little further. Just a little more. They cleared the car and shot upward. Marcus's head broke the surface, and he gasped, pulling in air so fast it made him dizzy. Both girls were still with him, still breathing, and the oak tree was right there, 5 feet away. He grabbed a low-hanging branch with his last bit of strength and pulled them close to the trunk. The older girl wrapped her arms around the tree, and Marcus positioned Emma on a thick branch just above the waterline. His hands shook as he made sure she was secure. "What's your name?" he asked the older girl between ragged breaths. "Lily," she managed. "And that's Emma. My little sister. I'm Marcus. We're going to be okay, Lily. I promise." But even as he said it, he wondered if it was true. They were alive, yes, but trapped. The water showed no signs of receding. His phone was somewhere at the bottom of the flood, useless. No one knew they were here. The storm raged on, and night was coming. Marcus looked at the two girls clinging to the tree, their trust in him absolute and terrifying, and realized that surviving the current was only the beginning. The real challenge was just starting. The rain didn't stop. If anything, it got worse. Marcus held onto the oak tree with aching arms, watching the water continue to rise inch by terrible inch. Emma had stopped crying, which worried him more than when she'd been sobbing. She sat on her branch, small and silent, staring at nothing. Shock, probably. He'd seen it before in accident victims at the factory where he worked. "Emma," he said gently. "Can you hear me?" She nodded without looking at him. "Good girl. We're going to stay right here until help comes. You're doing great." Lily shifted beside him, wincing. Marcus noticed she was favoring her left side, keeping her arm close to her body. "Are you hurt?" "It's nothing," she said quickly. Too quickly. Marcus reached over carefully. "Let me see." She pulled back, but he kept his voice soft. "Lily, I need to know if you're injured. I can't help if I don't know what's wrong." After a moment's hesitation, she moved her arm. Even in the fading light, Marcus could see the swelling. Her wrist had ballooned to twice its normal size, already turning purple. "It happened when we first got swept away," Lily explained, her voice tight with pain. "I hit something in the water. Broken or badly sprained. Either way, she needed medical attention." Marcus looked around, searching for any sign of rescue. The street had become unrecognizable, transformed into a raging river that swallowed everything familiar. Houses sat half submerged. Car alarms wailed in the distance, then went silent one by one as the water claimed them. "Where are your parents?" Marcus asked. Lily's face crumpled. Fresh tears mixed with the rain on her cheeks. "We don't know. We were at home. Mom went to the store right before the storm hit. She told us to stay inside, but then the water started coming under the door. We got scared. We thought we could make it to Mrs. Patterson's house on the hill. She's our neighbor. But the water came so fast." Emma finally spoke, her voice so small Marcus almost missed it. "Is Mom okay?" The question hit Marcus in the chest. He thought of his own son, Daniel, away at college 3 states over. Safe and dry. He thought of Sarah, who'd gone to visit her sister that morning and had probably been caught on the other side of town when the storm hit. Was she worried about him? Was she safe? "I'm sure your mom is fine," Marcus said, hoping it was true. "She's probably looking for you right now." A crack of thunder made them all flinch. Lightning illuminated the world for a split second, revealing the full scope of the disaster. Water stretched as far as Marcus could see. A couch floated past. A child's tricycle. Someone's photo albums, pages fluttering open like drowning birds. Hours crawled by. The light faded from gray to black. Marcus's legs cramped from the awkward position, but he didn't dare move. The water had stopped rising, at least. That was something. It sat just below Emma's branch, lapping at the bark like an animal waiting for them to slip. "Tell us a story," Emma whispered suddenly. Marcus blinked, surprised. "A story? To distract us. Please." He understood. The darkness was worse than the water. The unknown was worse than the cold seeping into their bones. A story was something normal, something human, a bridge back to a world where children sat safe and dry and listened to bedtime tales. So Marcus told them about his grandfather, the fisherman. He described summer days on the lake, the silver flash of trout in clear water, the smell of pine trees and campfire smoke. He told them about the time a bear wandered into their camp, and how his grandfather had stood perfectly still, speaking softly until the bear lost interest and ambled away. He made his voice steady and calm, weaving words into a rope they could hold on to. Lily leaned against the tree trunk, her injured wrist cradled in her lap. Emma's eyes remained fixed on Marcus's face, as if she could see him clearly despite the darkness. He kept talking, even when his throat went dry, even when he ran out of fishing stories and had to move on to tales about Daniel's little league games and Sarah's terrible attempts at baking. Around midnight, he heard it. A distant hum that grew louder. Light swept across the water, brilliant and white. "Here!" Marcus shouted, his voice cracking. "We're here!" In the tree. The light swung toward them. A boat, an actual boat, cut through the water, its motor growling. Two figures in bright orange jackets leaned over the side. "We've got you," one of them called. "Stay calm. We're coming." Marcus felt something break open inside his chest. Relief so intense it made him lightheaded. The boat pulled alongside the tree, and hands reached out, strong, sure hands that knew what they were doing. "Kids first," Marcus said hoarsely. They lifted Emma first, wrapping her in a silver emergency blanket. Then Lily, who cried out when they moved her injured wrist. Finally, they hauled Marcus into the boat. His legs nearly gave out when he tried to stand. Someone pressed a water bottle into his shaking hands. "You did good," the rescue worker said. "You did real good." Marcus looked at Lily and Emma, huddled together under their blankets, and felt tears he'd been holding back for hours finally fall. They were safe. Against all odds, they were safe. But as the boat powered away from the oak tree and into the flooded darkness, Marcus realized something with absolute clarity. His life had just changed in ways he couldn't yet understand. The emergency shelter at Riverside High School buzzed with controlled chaos. Cots lined the gymnasium floor in neat rows. Volunteers moved between them with blankets, water bottles, and lists of names. The smell of industrial coffee and wet clothes hung in the air. Marcus sat on a plastic chair while a paramedic examined the gash on his back. "You're lucky," the young woman said, applying butterfly bandages. "This could have needed stitches. You need to watch for infection." Lucky. The word felt strange. Marcus looked across the gym to where Lily and Emma sat with a social worker. A doctor had already splintered Lily's wrist, a clean break, they'd said, but it would heal. Emma was wrapped in 3 blankets despite the warmth of the shelter, still shivering from shock more than cold. They'd been separated when they first arrived. Standard procedure, someone explained. The girls needed medical evaluation. Marcus needed to be checked out. But his eyes kept finding them across the crowded space, making sure they were still there, still real, still breathing. "Mr. Webb." A police officer approached, clipboard in hand. "I need to ask you some questions about the rescue." Marcus answered mechanically, recounting the events. The officer's pen scratched across paper. Other survivors had their own stories, families split apart, houses destroyed, pets lost. A woman near the back of the gym sobbed into her phone, thanking God that her husband had been found alive. An elderly man sat alone, staring at nothing, his entire life reduced to the wet clothes on his back. "We're calling it a 100-year flood," the officer said, shaking his head. "Never seen anything like it. Death tolls at 17 so far. Could have been much worse." Marcus's stomach turned. 17 people. 17 families destroyed. "The girl's mother," Marcus said suddenly. "Has anyone found her?" The officer checked his list. "What's their last name?" "I don't know. The older girl is Lily, younger is Emma. They were from Pine Street. The officer's expression shifted, something between pity and concern. Let me check on that. He walked away, leaving Marcus with a growing sense of dread. He stood up, ignoring the paramedics' protest, and made his way across the gym. The social worker saw him coming and stood up, creating a barrier between him and the girls. Mr. Webb, the children need rest. I just want to see if they're okay. Lily looked up, and her face transformed. Marcus. The social worker's rigid posture softened slightly. You're the man who saved them. Is their mother here? Marcus asked quietly, already knowing the answer from her expression. We're still locating family members. The phone systems are overloaded. It's going to take time. Emma's hand crept into Lily's good one. The two sisters pressed together, a unit of two against a terrifying world. Can I sit with them? Marcus asked. Just for a minute. The social worker hesitated, then nodded. A few minutes. Marcus sat down heavily on the cot beside them. Up close, they looked even smaller than they had in the water. Just kids. Just two scared kids who'd been in the wrong place when nature decided to show its power. Thank you, Lily said, her voice barely audible over the noise of the shelter. You saved our lives. Marcus shook his head. You saved each other. You held on. Are they going to find our mom? Emma asked, looking up at him with eyes that held too much fear for someone so young. I'm sure they will. They're looking for everyone right now. But hours passed, and no one came. Marcus waited with them, even though the social worker said he should rest. He couldn't explain why he needed to stay. Maybe it was the way Lily kept scanning the entrance, hope dying a little more each time the door opened and revealed a stranger. Maybe it was how Emma had fallen asleep with her head on his shoulder, trusting him in a way that made his chest ache. Around dawn, the police officer returned. His face told Marcus everything before he spoke a single word. We found their mother, he said quietly, pulling Marcus aside. Diana Reeves. Her car went off Henderson Bridge. The current was too strong. She didn't make it. The father passed away 3 years ago, cancer. They've got an aunt in Michigan, but she's got health problems. Not sure she can take them. Marcus felt the floor tilt beneath him. He looked at the girls, Lily dozing fitfully, Emma curled into a tight ball. They didn't know yet. They were still living in a world where their mother might walk through that door at any moment. Who's going to tell them? Marcus heard himself ask. Social services will handle it. They're trained for this. Trained. As if training could soften the blow of losing everything. Marcus spent the rest of that day in a daze. He found Sarah, safe, thank God, and she held him while he cried for the first time since he was a boy. He told her everything. She listened, her hand rubbing circles on his back, and when he finished, she said something that would change everything. We have to help them. How? Marcus asked. We can't bring their mother back. No, Sarah said slowly. But we can make sure they're not alone. The idea settled between them, too big and terrifying to fully grasp. But it was there now, planted like a seed. 6 months later, Marcus stood in a courtroom, wearing the tie Sarah had picked out that morning. His hands were sweaty. His heart hammered like it had that day in the flood. But this time, it wasn't fear, it was something else entirely. Something that felt like hope. Lily and Emma sat in the front row with Sarah. Lily's wrist had healed, though she wore a brace when it ached. Emma had started smiling again, slowly, like a flower opening after a long winter. They both looked at Marcus now, waiting. The judge reviewed the paperwork one final time. The process had taken months: background checks, home visits, interviews, evaluations. Marcus and Sarah had opened every corner of their lives for inspection. Daniel had flown home from college 3 times to meet his potential new sisters. The girl's aunt in Michigan had signed the papers with trembling hands, relieved that her nieces would have a stable home even if it couldn't be with her. Mr. and Mrs. Webb, the judge said, looking up. I've reviewed your petition for adoption. I've read the reports from social services. I've spoken with Lily and Emma separately, and together, about what they want. Marcus held his breath. These girls have been through trauma that would break many adults. They lost their mother in a tragedy that affected this entire community. But they've also found something remarkable: people who ran into danger to save them, and who continued to show up every day after. That's what family is. Not just blood, but choice and commitment. The judge smiled, and Marcus felt tears prick his eyes. It is my honor to grant this adoption. Lily and Emma Reeves are now Lily and Emma Webb. Congratulations. The courtroom erupted in applause. Sarah was crying. Daniel whooped from the back row. And Lily and Emma ran to Marcus, throwing their arms around him. He hugged them back, these two girls who had changed everything, and felt a completeness he hadn't known he was missing. The months that followed weren't perfect. Lily had nightmares about the flood. Emma was afraid of rainstorms, needing to sleep with a light on. Marcus and Sarah learned to parent girls after raising only Daniel, learned about hair braiding and school drama and the particular terror of teenage years approaching. The house felt smaller and louder and infinitely fuller. But there were perfect moments too. Lily making the honor roll and squealing with joy. Emma laughing at one of Daniel's terrible jokes during Sunday dinner. The four of them, 6 when Daniel came home, sitting around the table, passing food, talking over each other, being a family in all the messy, beautiful ways that mattered. One evening, a year after the adoption, Marcus found Lily on the back porch. She was looking at the sky, clear and blue, not a storm cloud in sight. "Thinking about your mom?" he asked gently. Lily nodded. They'd put up a small memorial in the backyard, a stone with Diana's name and dates. The girls visited it often, leaving flowers, talking to her. "I wish she could see us now," Lily said. "See that we're okay. That we're happy." Marcus sat beside her. "I think she knows. And I think she'd be glad you found a safe place to land." "Do you ever regret it?" Lily asked suddenly, turning to face him. "Taking us in? Your life was probably easier before." Marcus considered the question. His life had been easier, certainly. Quieter. More predictable. But easier wasn't the same as better. "You know what I regret," he said. "I regret that I didn't grab those sandbags from the hardware store. If I had, maybe I wouldn't have been standing at my window at the exact moment I heard you scream. Maybe someone else would have saved you. Maybe no one would have." He took her hand. "I don't believe in fate, Lily. But I believe that sometimes, terrible things happen and good things come from them. Not because the terrible thing was good, your mom dying will never be good. But because people choose to respond with love instead of walking away. Your mom loved you and Emma so much that she'd be happy knowing you're cared for, even if it's not by her." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "You saved our lives." "And you saved mine," Marcus said. "I just didn't know I needed saving." Emma burst through the back door, interrupting the moment. "Dad. Lily. Sarah says dinner's ready and we're having tacos." "Dad." The word still made Marcus's throat tight every time he heard it. "Coming." Lily called, standing up. Marcus followed them inside, into the warm, noisy kitchen where Sarah was serving food and Daniel was stealing chips from the bowl and everyone was talking at once. This was his family now. Built from tragedy and choice, from a split-second decision to run into danger instead of staying safe. But he thought about that day in the flood sometimes. The fear, the cold, the certainty that they might not make it. But mostly he thought about what came after. The long nights in the hospital. The first time Emma had called him dad by accident and then on purpose. Lily's graduation from middle school, where she'd given a speech about resilience that had the entire auditorium in tears. The ordinary, extraordinary life they'd built together. 3 lives changed forever by one moment of choice. Marcus wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. As they sat down to dinner, Emma said grace, something they'd started doing after the adoption, at the girls' request. "Thank you for this food, and for this family, and for second chances," she said. "Amen. Amen," they all echoed. Outside, the first drops of rain began to fall, a gentle spring shower, nothing dangerous. Inside, the family Marcus had found in the flood was safe, warm, and whole.